In the Fair Chance Sourcing Project, Michigan State journalism students are using technology to solve one of journalism's oldest problems. The problem is that communities are not covered completely. Always, different ethnic groups, ages, or genders are left out. By turning a Google form into an app and having it immediately feed demographics about our sources into a database, we now generate visualizations that show us how well our interviewing correlates to our communities. Once we see who's missing, we can talk about why and improve. Let's hear some students explain this to Free Press editor Peter Batya.
Journalism 300 is doing source logging for our classes. It is basically so that we're keeping track of ourselves and who we're talking to, so that we don't leave anybody out. We're taking gender, race, like zip code, things about these people, and it's so that we give everybody a fair chance to speak in our stories, and we can compare with the census of like counties and like areas in Michigan to make sure that we're properly representing the area.
So part of this process that we have is we use the survey on Google Drive to collect answers, which we then put into a spreadsheet so that we can look at the demographics that we are talking to. So at the top of this survey, we have a little bit of a message. It says, Journ 300 Sources, Spring 2020. Thank you for your interview. People's words are the heart of what we do. Our stories are published on the Spartan Newsroom website. We want to represent all perspectives in the community fairly, so we have a few questions beyond the basic ones. If you'd like to finish reading the message, we have that right up top there. We generally do this at the end after we've gotten everything that we want to get out of a source, because there are some questions on there that are a little bit uncomfortable, because not everyone's comfortable answering what their, political affiliation or things like that out loud are. That's what the nice thing is if you have it plugged into your phone, oftentimes at the end of an interview, after you've gotten the information that you need, you can ask, hey, would you mind filling out this brief survey and kind of explain what we do to them? And oftentimes people are a lot more receptive, at least that I've found, to doing the survey on the phone rather than answering some of these things out loud.
Wow, that's amazing.
My classmates have done a pretty good job explaining. Now I was wondering, would you like to possibly take this survey yourself?
Oh, sure. So what's your experience been like doing these surveys? How do people react when you ask?
So far my experience has been pretty good. I've had a little setbacks. Students are more so willing to answer the questions, and from my experience, typically if I ask them, but I'm learning that if I hand them my phone, that it kind of makes them a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
So basically our goal with all this is to make sure we're accurately representing the cities we're writing about. So if our city is 50% male, 50% female, and our sources are 80% male, then that's a little bit of a problem we need to focus on, adjust it, make sure we're actually showing the people we have, and beyond gender, for race. One of the beats is doing Mason. Mason's predominantly white, so you would expect the sources there to follow. Unlike East Lansing, which doesn't follow the same model, you'd want a more diverse group of sources. And then since it's election year, there's a political preferences category, so you want to make sure we're not just talking to liberals or conservatives. So we want a variety of sources to make sure we're accurately describing how the city feels about the election.
So whenever someone fills out the surveys, it automatically goes into a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, and then from there we can download it into Flourish and start looking at the data, how it visualizes. And we use the data sort of as a benchmark. We go week by week in class. You can't base your sourcing off of demographic information all the time, so that's kind of a struggle that we face sometimes, because, for example, I did a story about a fire department, and that happened to be majority male, majority white, majority over 40 or 50. So that didn't necessarily reflect the entire community, but you have to get legitimate sources for that sort of thing. You can't just, source someone based off of what they look like or what you think they believe.
So now that Ellie and Adam gave you guys some background information on all of the data sheet and all the stuff that we're collecting, we'll now take a look at the graphs. So if we want to look at the first graph here, we can see that we're looking at specifically gender here. It looks like we have a little bit more female than we do male. And then we also have one person that identifies as trans, non-binary, or other, and then one person that also did not answer that piece of data. So if we look at this next one now, we go specifically by age. We can see that most of our age group is in between the ages of 0 to 20, and then also we have a good majority in the 20-year-olds as well. So if we look at East Lansing as a whole, there is a majority because of Michigan State. We do have a lot of younger people here, but it's not that big, so we need to start reaching out to older people as well. If we go to the next graph, we can look at the political views of East Lansing, and based on this, we can see that there's very minimal that are strongly conservative. You have a couple that are leaning conservative. Strongly liberal and leans liberal are a little bit larger than leaning conservative, and then independent or undecided, and then people that just didn't answer, that is over 50% of the people that we have surveyed. So what we changed is independent and undecided. They are now separate categories. So you can do independent or undecided, and as we're here on Michigan State, we have a lot of younger people, so a lot of people may be undecided based on who we're surveying. We take a look at our second to last graph here, and we can see the male, female, or trans non-binary or other, as well as their political leanings. So we can see that the strongly conservatives are male. Leans conservative is a 50-50 split between male and female, and then independent, leans liberal, and strongly liberal, those all favor the females. And then last but not least, our last graph here, we take a look at race and ethnicity versus political leaning, and we see that a lot of white people are really representative of all things. And then if we look at black or African American, there are no black or African American people that are leaning conservative or strongly conservative. They mostly make up the liberal side or the independent or undecided side. And you can look at all races that we've surveyed as well as their political leaning.
I guess for me, I'm mainly just learning to keep like a conscious eye on everyone I'm talking to. Like again, I'm a 19-year-old male, so it's easy for me to just talk to college students on campus, because they're like me. It's easier to talk to them. But with this, like it kind of double checks me, make sure I'm interviewing a wide variety of people, and just building that habit of not talking to the easiest source, getting the best ones for the story.